unnecessary distraction, performed as a curtain raiser to Yoruba Sonnets at Salisbury Arts Centre and performed by Wiltshire Creative's Mind the Gap group. So this is our creative elders group, and you worked with them and included many of the art forms that you're really passionate about and work with them to create a complementary piece to Yoruba Sonnets. Would you just give us an indication of that project?
Oh my God, this is one of my, this has given me, of all the ones I've done, I enjoyed all of them. I still enjoy thinking about the others, and I've got so many things I want to do, but this one gave me the most pleasure. I had a dream with this. So working with the, as you said, working with the Mind the Gap, and this was kind of set up or developed with Rebecca, my wife, Rebecca Seymour, who is really passionate. We're both passionate, but she's like passionate about elders or celebrating age. In fact, that's one of the projects that she's running at the moment. And one thing that I've always been, and I share this with her, but she's been an inspiration in this area, where one of the things that she said is that why, when someone gets past 60, do you think their tastes reduce? You know, how is it that when you get to 60, you suddenly don't have discerning taste, you know, and that she just refuses to put on events that are not of quality for elders. But also with celebrating age, she's looking at trying to get people, good artists, opera singers, musicians, pianists, very different cultural exposure to different cultural forms. Like we have Sekou Keita, who's now very massive, is a friend of ours, who I've drummed with at drum festival, but he's now big folk kora player. He's done a lot of work with Rebecca in hospitals doing, you know, so she's done this amazing things like this, and the idea is to explore the idea that that elders are citizens of heritage. We have this saying in Yoruba land: you can't go and buy grey hair in the market for anyone to go and pick up. You know, this is impossible. And if you do buy the grey hair, you'll be found out, because it's like, last week, oh boy, you had nice black hair. Why do you have grey? You know, this.
You've got to earn it. You've got to earn your grey hair.
You've got to hear that. You've got to earn the grey hair, but it's also very specific to do with grey hair comes from lived experience. You mentioned it earlier. It's lived experience. So you might have a cleaner who's 70, and then a young buck from the kind of like, you know, from Oxford. That guy from Oxford has still got to respect the lived experience of the cleaner. And there is something that happens to a human being just because they're getting older. That's not necessarily, and it, unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, I think this is one of the debates in kind of like post-colonial writing, is that English is very neutral in that sense. There's no kind of, you don't talk to your elders in a different way to the way you speak to your contemporaries or the young. There's no kind of differentiation. It's just English. Just there it is. And consequently, the people, you have to sort of build in respect in some ways. Whereas in Yoruba land, you don't do that. In certain ways you speak to your elders and your contemporaries and your youth. So there's a very strict, very clear way, and that way of speaking maintains the understanding of grey hair. That is, you know. And so yeah, so what I wanted to do, and because it goes back to Butoh as well. So Butoh, when I was studying it and developing it, I realized that the older I get, the more I understand Butoh. And I just thought, wouldn't it be fantastic to work with Mind the Gap and draw on their body of experience. Some of them have never performed before, you know, so it's like completely, and it's interested in it. And of course, you know, doing Butoh is a kind of difficult, it's not what people think of performance when they think of performance, you know. But I just had this idea of them being all white, you know, all this kind of, you know, just coming forward in this kind of way. So I had this really strong picture, and I wanted to do it and I wanted to find a way of doing it that would be appropriate. And so when this happened, I thought, I need a curtain raiser. It's got to be done. So then I approached Virginia, and she just perfectly has a very kind of clear way of working with them, and also understands how I work in some ways. And so it was on. So she gave me a decent amount of time to work with them. I think it was 5 weeks. Yeah, it was 5 weeks I had with them. And I thought, right, okay, so how am I going to get them in 5 weeks to do Butoh? Then I thought to myself, Christmas Carol, of course. So I mean, you know, and I thought, because I want, so that was a starting point where I just sat down with them, you know, as elders like to do in a circle. They want to sit down, and I said, talk to me. I said, you talk to me about this Christmas Carol and what your understanding of it. Because the important thing about elders is that we have a saying again, which is, when an elder dies, that is a library burning. And it's very different, because we often say, oh, there's always a book, everyone has a book in them. You know, that's from a Yoruba point of view, that's an insult. Just one book? What are you saying? You know, everybody has multiple books. There's a whole library of books in our lived experience. And when an elder dies, that is a library burning. And so I said, so that means that when an elder is at the point when they're ripe, we'd say, I suppose you could say ripe old age, but doesn't really cut it. It's a bit insulting. When we say you are ripe, the ripeness is that you are now fully fledged in your experience, and you're ready to pass on into the ancestors. You know, it's a very different way of seeing it. And so, yeah, so I thought to myself, yeah, it'd be great to get these guys and ask them. I said, what do you think? And of course, as you'd imagine, they unpacked the Christmas Carol, and, you know, it was wonderful just to hear that alone. That's the first session. And then I said, right, and then I said, at the end of the session, I said, right, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to develop, each person to develop their own character. They're going to be their own ghost. But rather than it being, you know, Marley talking to, you know, Scrooge, it's going to be you talking to the world. Mate, if I had a year, I'm sure we wouldn't have finished. You know, because you can imagine, I was like, oh my God, well, this, and of course, and I got a friend of mine who I'd worked with for some time. She's Alex Hoare, who she came and did the costume. Of course, she was brilliant. So, and her, because we work very similar, that is, we stand back and then just ask them, what do you need? And we'll try and facilitate what they wanted. Of course, some of the things, I mean, there was one woman, she decided, she said, mine is about, I want to reflect the fact that what we're doing to the oceans. And so that she had ducks and things like, you know, rope around her, and, you know, and then there's one woman, I think she's actually doing some work with me at the moment in this thing. She did, she was a lawyer, but dusty lawyer, and her face was weighted, you know. And so we had them painted in the classical white, you know, ghostly fashion, but it was that. And so therefore that then gave me the in terms of teaching them the techniques. But of course, and it was really good, because then, you know, someone said, but I can't really walk that fast. I'm thinking, that's the point. I don't want you to walk fast. If you stumble, that's exactly the thing. I want you to use that. And of course, when the light bulb went, there was that indulgence of movement and slightly kind of vulnerable thing, which you can't, it's very difficult to teach because it has to be real.
You're challenging them almost not to perform.
Yes, yes, yeah.
For those who have performed, or anyone who has performed, or even, you know, being some, you know, if you're somebody who's watched performance, you understand the concept of somebody performing, whereas actually what you're asking them to do is very, very different.
Yeah.
You're not asking them to perform, you're asking, they are an interpretation of themselves.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that they're wanting, what do you want to hold a mirror to society? And there was a great moment when they walk by and they turn around and look at the audience and say, did you see? You know, kind of like the elders kind of Paddington stare, you know, did you see that? Did you understand it? You know, and of course they can do that, you see, that's just there. So we did the whole performance, and it worked brilliantly. And a student, she's from Finland, who studied Butoh with me. She's just finished. No, she's going into the second year. Actually, she was in the first year. Totally fiery. I mean, she's a mature student. So I think she's 24, 25. And she, for her first piece, she created this beautiful drops of water in intervals in the Fibonacci series. And then she played it to me. She said, "Oh, look, can I just play you this?" And this is her. And I thought, and I listened to it, and I watched her movement, and I thought, "Oh, this is so good." Right, okay. Can I play these to my, to my group? Do you mind if I, And she said, "Oh, no, don't, no problem." And I'd made some other stuff as well, sort of like what I thought could be quite interesting, and I played them both. And I played them my one first, and think, "Oh, just think of this," and I said, "Yeah, it's all right." And then I played them. Viv, her name, Vivian's piece, and everybody went, "That's the one." They all wanted to use that one, so we used it, and it was wonderful in the kind of quad system in the art centre. Just these drops of water, and they came forward, and they just got it, and it was just sublime. So it was a real realization, and it was a confirmation that Butoh is for the elder. It is it's the movement of the elder. So that's another area. That was the first time that's happened. So I'm quite interested in developing that at some point. But again, I've got to wait until things calm down, but that's something which I'd like to sort of develop to work with elders, because there's so much could be done, particularly now that's done. I think I know how to translate quite complex ideas into something that's more accessible, but at the same time, like you said, challenging them, because they, and of course, that's another thing. When someone gets to sort of 70, who says they don't want to be challenged? Yeah. What is that? And so,
and that's what our Mind the Gap group is about. It's about people who enjoy being creative things as their common trait, and coming together to learn a new skill, because as you say, why wouldn't you want to be challenged or learn something new?
Yeah.
Just because you've gotten a bit older. Yeah, absolutely. And of course that formed an amazing complementary piece to the Yoruba Sonnets.
Yeah, because the title of this course was Unnecessary Distractions, which actually was one of the phrases in the performance, which is a key phrase, because essentially that's what that Ejogbe is about. Ejogbe is it's the flood of dawn. It's the opening of this. It's the irrepressible opening of the spirit. It's spring. It's when spring is so expansive that everything is just growing. Everything is the rising sap, not just in a forest, but in all forests. It's that kind of that surge. So and that's also to do with realization and what is essentially the truth of the universe. And if we are distracted we might be holding back that. So it's like distraction holds back the truth of the, you know, it's like distraction is like a boulder in a river, and then you're trying to go upriver and keep going back to the boulder rather than actually just going past the boulder and going with the flow.
And that's what we're all living at the moment as well, aren't we? We're living with possibly less distractions.
Yeah.
At the moment, and you know, so we are living with fewer unnecessary distractions. So it's important to work out what are the unnecessary distractions, so we can focus on the present.
Yeah,
The things that very much wave across, especially, you know, particularly these 4 pieces you've picked out for us, but clearly that push through all of your work. Olu, thank you so much for telling us more about the background of the projects you selected. It's been a great privilege to find out more about what inspires you in such a personal way, and how your own experiences and those of your ancestors continue to influence your work. So thank you so much.
It's really been my pleasure, Louise. Really been my pleasure, and thank you for asking me. I mean, this is the first time that I've ever had any kind of retrospective, and it's just, yeah, it's very nice. Thank you.